There's three things that my mentor taught me. He was a 10-figure producer. What I mean by that is he was a billionaire. And when you're around for 15 years, billionaire thinking and that type of association and environment, it has a tendency to saturate every aspect of your life. And we were talking one day, and he just simply said, I want to tell you about some of the mistakes that I see people making. But there's three things. And if you're going to build something like a business, if you're going to build something that is going to be eventually worth a lot of money. He says a lot of people go out and he says they tell and speak and they say, this is what we're going to do. He says, we're going to do this, 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 and this. He says, that's fine if that works for you. But he says, the problem is what happens if somebody, number one, steals your idea? Number two, what happens if somebody calls you out and says it's not happened yet? He said, I'm going to give you three things that you must do in order to really keep the greatest odds of what you're building succeeding. He said, the reason for this is because it's worked for me, it's worked for everybody that I associate with, and I know it will work for you. He says, you have to work underneath the radar at the very beginning, and you have to hustle like crazy. He said, you work in privacy. He says, because when people want to know what you're doing, and I haven't told anybody anything about our plans for the next 2 to 3 years, and the reason for that is because we got huge things planned, but we've kept it quiet. Why? Because my mentor always said, do not reveal what you're doing until the time that it's ready to be revealed. You finished. And we've been working on stuff for 2, 3, 4 years, and we haven't told a soul. And the reason for that is because it's just not ready. And most of it is ready now, but 2, 3 years ago, it wasn't. You need to work in privacy. You need to work in isolation sometimes just to give your brain a break, just to give your brain that functional quietness that it can burn on all cylinders to be able to build what you want to build. Now, my mentor, he had built multitudes of businesses, and all of them were big. But the one thing that he said is, if you're building something from the ground up, he says, build it in quiet privacy. He says, even if you have to isolate yourself occasionally just to get it right. But he says, don't go out and do what everybody else says. This is what we're going to do, because he says that's what people that often fail do. Why work in privacy? Why work underneath the radar? Why work in all those different things? Number one, it builds credibility. You have to understand something. When you do that, when you build it in silence, when you build it in privacy, when you build it underneath the radar where nobody's knowing, results are powerful. Undeniable treatment to your ability is there. And it's an undeniable testament to your ability. Because when you build in silence and suddenly you show up with something that's just unignorable, if you will, that builds so much credibility. Because people suddenly say, well, why didn't you tell us? I can't tell you how many times there are certain things that Jody and I had built, and we have released them, and nobody had any idea at all what we were doing. They're going, well, why didn't you tell us you were doing this? Not only can it build credibility, but it shifts the focus from can you to how did you do that? Did you get that? When you build in silence, build in privacy, build underneath the radar, and don't tell anybody, it builds credibility to the point of where people say, can you do that? To how did you do that? And that's what you want. You want people to question, how in the world did you do that? And why didn't you tell us? Because it not only builds credibility, but it shows that you are in charge and you have the discipline to keep your mouth shut on what you're building. Never reveal what you're building to anybody, ever. And the reason why is because it will skyrocket the credibility, and it will go from, can you do this, to how did you do this? And that's when your credibility skyrockets. Number two, it protects your energy and it protects your vision. Because there's going to be naysayers, there's going to be resistance, there's going to be people that do not want you to succeed. It's that simple. I wish it weren't true, but it's true. There are people that don't want me to succeed in certain things because that's just what they do. Silence, privacy, working underneath the radar, if you will, guard your goals from negativity, doubt, people that try to interfere, resistance, people that simply don't have your best interest at heart. And what you're doing is you're preserving your energy. You need to protect your energy. You need to protect your vision from people that will try to deflate you, people that will try to say, you can't do that. Yes, you can. You can do anything you put your mind to, but you have to understand when you work underneath the radar, not only does it build credibility, but it protects your energy, it protects your vision, it protects your heart, it protects your thinking, and it protects your emotions. You don't have to worry about if you fail 20 times. Nobody's going to know about it. You just keep going. You don't have to worry about if something just is perfectly, you got it right, but it doesn't work. Something suddenly went wrong and you have to fix it. You just keep going. And when people know that what you're doing, they're going to be checking up on you, and they're going to, every single failure, they're going to say, I told you it wasn't going to work. Zip it. And the reason why is because it will go better for you when you work underneath the radar. It builds credibility. It protects energy and vision. But here's the most important thing. It really does reduce pressure. Because when people know what you're doing and they're asking you, they're watching you, and they're constantly wanting to know more, that's pressure. It's emotional pressure, mental pressure. And this is something that you don't want. You are only accountable to yourself when you're working underneath the radar and in private. That's it. Now, if you have an investor, different story. You're accountable to him or her, if somebody invested in your business. But even then, just tell them what they need to know and don't tell them anything else. Why? Because you want to work underneath the radar, because you can get more done quicker and in a more powerful way working underneath the radar than being public with it. Allow yourself the luxury to fail. Did you get that? Allow yourself the luxury to fail, because when we were looking at doing what we're doing with the videos and the books and the courses and everything else, we failed many times on different things. But it's a luxury because nobody knew we were doing it. So we said, okay, let's keep going. Let's do it again. Let's do it over. And it, not only does it give you the luxury to fail, but also to grow and to expand and to tweak it and get it right without an audience breathing down your neck. And that is the reason why my mentor, my 10-figure mentor, if you will, and when you hang out with 10-figure thinking for 15, 20 years, it really does change you. He says, Douglas, always, when you're building something, do it in silence, do it in privacy, do it underneath the radar, keep your mouth shut. It builds credibility, it protects your energy and vision, and it reduces the pressure that you're going to have, because you're going to fail. Not everything's going to work, and you got to figure it out. He says it gives you time to do that without the pressure of people seeing, I told you it wasn't going to work. See, you're such a failure. This is not going to work. Don't tell anybody what you're doing, and you don't have to listen to it. I've got right now somebody I'm coaching that is building something, and she was telling everybody what she was getting ready to do, and I pulled her off to the side and I said, don't ever mention this again to anybody. And she said, why? I said, because when you operate in private, when you operate underneath the radar, it goes better for you. And 6 months later, she said, you're right. She says, everybody was asking me, how's it going? I said, well, this didn't work. That didn't work. And she says, I just felt horrible. She says, I don't say anything. She says, when people ask her, and her name's Sherry, Sherry said, when people ask me what I'm doing, how's it going? Saying, going great. What are you doing? We're working on some things. She doesn't say a word, anything else. And it kept her going in a method, in a way that was strategically much better for her emotionally. Guys, this is how that you do it. Do not tell, if you're building something, a new business or anything else, writing a book, writing songs, or anything else that you're building, do it in privacy, underneath the radar. Keep your mouth shut and don't tell anybody. And then when you do reveal it out, it'll be boom. It'll be like an explosion. Like, share, subscribe to this channel, guys, because we're teaching some really crazy stuff here. We're getting ready to take it up to a whole new level, too. This is one of the reasons why I say this. Join the Fire family. Become part of our family here, because people that I have been blessed to work with over the last 25 years, there's tons of them that became multimillionaires just because of certain things that happened that they figured it out, but they had support, they had anointed, and most importantly, they had the Lord, which obviously does everything regarding in that respect. So, like, subscribe, follow, send this video to somebody. It really could help. Save this video as well. And by the way, spread the fire.